This Whitney Houston biopic, I Want to Dance with Somebody, is acceptable. It's decent. But it is time to let Whitney Houston rest in peace. We have had enough biopics, documentaries, fan fiction films that they could have kept. We've had enough films that exploited her illness, and I think enough is enough. Here's my review of Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody. What we really get from this biopic is a concert film, and that's okay, but it's missing the ingredient of an antagonistic force that most stories have. It's missing an antagonistic force, and I think that is going to detach a lot of people from the story. Now, listen, I did not want an exploitative film. I wasn't going to support that. If it was about exploiting her illness or habit or any of that, we've had enough of that. I saw this real time. We really don't need that type of biopic. I get it. They all have that element. But with Whitney Houston, it would have been just exploitative, and we really didn't need that. But what this film failed to tap into is Whitney Houston's her business acumen that was exceptional. She was an exceptional producer, and she was such a hands-on mentor to the younger generation coming up, navigating through this tough, murky music industry. She was a fantastic mentor to the younger generation. That wasn't tapped into. This was this was more of a concert film where there was a little drama sprinkled in just to be a bridge to get to the highlights of her music career and accolades. And I don't believe that director Casey Lemons served this property in the best way that celebrated Whitney's life. She wasn't only music, she wasn't only the songs. And I think it's so contained in her these big performances. It's sort of just a contained biopic. She was more than that. She meant so much to so many people, her fans, and of course, the people in the industry who look up to her and who look to her as the voice. And then there's the title. So the title is I Want to Dance with Somebody. And I was like, well, why would they name it, title this I Want to Dance with Somebody, which was a very popular hit of hers. And in the movie, this is not really a spoiler, but in the movie, she explains that she wants to dance with somebody in particular, which was Robin Crawford, right? She wanted to dance with someone. She wanted to be free. But the reason that the title doesn't work is because her relationship with Robin Crawford just seemed like a phase. And that doesn't serve her story either. To just brush it off as if it was just some phase she went through in her early 20s. That didn't serve her either. So the title just didn't make sense. I think this biopic should have been titled either The Voice, which is somewhat of a moniker for her, The Voice, or Home. The arc that Casey Lemons uses in this biopic. So Whitney Houston is introduced to the world, her first TV performance singing, her first musical performance on TV was the Merv Griffin Show, and she sang her rendition of Home, the song from The Wiz. I think Home might have been a better choice of title for this film because how the film ends, this is not necessarily a spoiler, but how the film ends, Ricky Minor wants the world to see the power in her voice, and so she does this beautiful melody. She does this beautiful medley on the American Music Awards, which she makes history on. She does this beautiful medley, and one of the songs in the medley is Home, and it just captures the power of her voice, the uniqueness of her voice as a mezzo soprano, and how no one could have hit this except Whitney. Even in the last days and years of her life, she wanted to get back home, and home meaning, to that place where her gift that changed the world, to get back to her gift, that home, where her soul and her purpose was to share herself with the world through her music. And so I think that would have been a better title, Home, instead of I Want to Dance with Somebody. When Whitney was a little girl, a hanger got stuck in her throat, and doctors said she'd never sing or she'd never be normal again. And for her to overcome that would have been a good arc to place in this story, to include in this biopic, so that her fans and so the world could see that this was her purpose. This is where she meant to be. Home was in the bosom of God, sharing the gift he blessed her with the world, with the world. I think though that Casey Lemons has given us some fantastic films throughout her career, and I just had higher expectations. I had high expectations, and I think I was let down somewhat. Although, again, I'm glad that this didn't exploit Whitney's life. The darker times. It wasn't necessarily exploitative. I get that they didn't want to do that, but without an antagonistic force of some kind, it just diminishes the organic nature of storytelling, in my opinion. Now on to the performances. Stanley Tucci as Clive Davis was okay. It was a little milquetoast, but there's this mystery. Unless you're in Clive Davis's circle, there's this mystery about him, and so Stanley Tucci understood the assignment and he delivered that, which at the end of the day was the bare minimum. This wasn't about Clive Davis, so I get it. He did a decent job portraying Clive Davis. I think Tamara Tooney did a great job as Cissy Houston. I believe that she delivered the best performance of the film. She is a great singer. She didn't try to mimic Cissy Houston's voice or register. Cissy Houston is a coloratura soprano. It is completely impossible to mimic Cissy Houston's voice, and so it was good to hear Tamara's voice in the film and know that she didn't even try to mimic Cissy Houston's voice. She sang the songs herself, which were beautiful. So I do love that about her performance. Her performance reminded me of Ingenue Ellis's performance as Maddie Moss Clark in the Clock Sisters biopic. That's the level of perfection she brought to this performance, and I think she did a great job. She delivered the best performance of the film, in my opinion. But Naomi Ackie, and I say this with love because I appreciate this sister, I will support this sister, and I believe that she did a good job. I do believe that, and I say this with love. She had Whitney Houston's mannerisms down. I think she concentrated so much on the mannerisms and the lip syncing that she lost the performance. She lost the performance in the mechanics and the logistics and the physicality of Whitney Houston's mannerisms. And since she doesn't look like Whitney, the mannerisms or the lack of the performance showing up as this other person was diminished, and it was a little distracting. And she doesn't look like Whitney Houston. She looked more like Alfre Woodard and Yvonne Orji, which was also a distraction because I kept drifting away because I saw someone else. But she didn't look like Whitney Houston, even though she had the mechanics and physicality of Whitney Houston because of the mannerisms. That could come off as a caricature or an impersonation when you're so focused on the mechanics. And I think that's where she lost the portrayal of Whitney Houston. And again, I think she did good, but I think she wanted that so bad that the portrayal got lost in the mechanics. Like, here's the thing. So with Jamie Foxx portraying Ray Charles, now he doesn't look like Ray Charles. He didn't physically look like Ray Charles, and he did have the mechanics of Ray Charles, and he can impersonate voices and mannerisms. Jamie Foxx can. But he didn't, in all of that, because he has this ambidextrous gift where he can do impersonations and act and sing at the same time, he didn't get lost in the performance. He made sure to show up as Ray Charles, as the person, the man, the human. He showed up and disappeared as Jamie Foxx. So he, like I said, he has an ambidextrous way where he can do all of that at the same time and inhabit the figure that he is portraying. And I think Naomi Ackie didn't have that ambidextrous portrayal where she could have the mannerisms and perform as this figure, as Whitney Houston. Like the mannerisms, how Whitney moved her lips and her head shakes and her attitude. She had all of that, but that's mechanical. We could have done without that and still had a great performance. In closing, this falls short of the traditional biopic, and it's more like a highlight reel of Whitney Houston's greatest accomplishments, a concert film, if you will. And I think we should be done. Let Whitney Houston rest in peace. Let us enjoy all of the performances and, let her rest in peace. Let her rest in peace. Enough of trying to capture this blessed life that you had to be there for to really, really appreciate.